Thank you, ma'am.
Hello students, today my topic is instrumental methods of analysis, so which is coming under chemistry of electronic materials. You always feel this unit will be a very tough unit. It's not like that. I will teach you in an elegant manner so that directly you can take all the questions for examination point of view. How much ever is possible, that much possibility I use to cover in this topic. First, I'm going to see what are all the topics which is present in instrumental methods of analysis. First one is Beer-Lambert's law, UV visible spectrophotometer, IR spectrophotometer, thermal analysis. In this thermal analysis, TGA, DTA and DAC. I will teach you what is TGA, DTA and DAC while I am going through the slides. And the last one is sensors. In that sensors, oxygen and glucose sensors. Before I start UV visible spectrophotometer or the Beer-Lambert's law, that is nothing but the laws of absorption. You want to study the Beer-Lambert's law means you should understand the concept, what is happening. Very simple concepts, Beer-Lambert's law, two names. It was actually initially two scientists, they have put forward those laws separately. First one is Lambert's law and the second one is Beer's law. First, I will teach you what is Lambert's law. So what is meant by Lambert's law? When a beam of monochromatic radiation passes through a solution which is transparent absorbing medium, the decrease in intensity of the light is proportional to the thickness of the absorbing material. So you have a solution in a test tube or a quart. When you pass the solution, you think some amount of the solution will be, some amount of the light will be absorbed by the solution. And when it is transmitted, when you give like a 5 incident light, means the same 5 incident light will not be transmitted. It will be lesser than the 5. So that is due to the some amount of the light is absorbed by the thickness of the medium, which was proposed by Lambert's law. That is what I have given. When a beam of monochromatic radiation passes through a solution containing an absorbing substance, the amount of light absorbed by a solution is proportional to the thickness of the absorbing material. How to represent it in a mathematical manner? First, you have to write minus di by dx is proportional to I. What is di, madam? Di is nothing but the decrease in the intensity of the light. That is light which is transmitted after absorbing, that is only di. Dx is nothing but the thickness of the medium. I is the intensity of incident radiation. So when you replace that proportionality constant, you have to put equal sign and you have to integrate within the limits. That's what I have done. So can you see here? So this is what I have done. Di by I is equal to k dx. So you have to substitute the limit. So what is the limit? Here I naught I di by I is equal to x is equal to 0, x is equal to b and k dx. Why I have chosen the term b means I have to mention the thickness. The thickness you can put it in L or you can put it in B, any alphabets you have used. But in all the familiar, like any analytical books, when you take, either they will use the B or they will use the L term. So I have used the B term. B is nothing but the thickness. Now you can ask, ma'am, initially you told like dx is the thickness. Dx is the thickness means I have to integrate. I cannot integrate any other alphabet apart from x, y and z in integration. That's why I have used the dx, not me. The scientists, they have used the dx. Now, when you integrate di by I, what is di by I? Log I. So you have to put the limits is equal to minus. So minus y minus decrease in intensity. So you have to put minus k. So when you integrate dx, it will become x and you have to substitute the limit. I think it's clear. Now log I, you have to substitute the limit, upper limit minus lower limit. That's what I have done. Log I by I naught is equal to minus. Here x you have to put b and this entire lower limit will become 0. So minus kb. So now here minus is there. So when I reverse this I naught by I, the minus sign will be vanished. So log I naught by I is equal to kb. So which is nothing but the amount of incident radiation is proportional to the thickness of the absorbing medium. This is what given by Lambert's law. Next one is Beer's law. So Lambert's talk about the thickness of the absorbing medium. Now Beer laws, same definition. I did not change anything. There you will write the thickness and here you will write the concentration. So what is Beer's law? When a beam of monochromatic radiation passes through a solution containing an absorbing substance, the amount of light absorbed by a solution is proportional to the concentration of the solution. Whereas in Lambert's law, you talk about the thickness of the medium, whereas here you are talking about the concentration of the solutions. I have put the beam of twice. It's a mistake. You can rectify it. Now the same thing only I have to put. I don't want to waste the time. The same thing I have written. So what you have got, log I naught by is equal to KB. So here directly I have taken the same thing when you derive everything. So instead of that B here, no, you will put C, nothing else. Here dx only, everything will be there. And instead of this B, you have to put C. And when you put, it will become C. There I have used the proportionality constant as K. Here I'm going to use the proportionality constant as K prime. The final equation will be log I naught by I is equal to K prime C. So I have told you already, I naught is the intensity of incident radiation before entering the medium. I is the intensity of radiation after passing through the medium, and the K prime is the molar absorption coefficient. Why madam molar absorption coefficient? Because you are using the concentration in molarity, moles per liter. So molar. So what is the concept we are doing? Law of absorption. So molar absorption, it is a constant. So molar absorption coefficient. C is nothing but the molar concentration of the absorbing solution. So I made it clear. Lambert's law, the decrease in intensity is proportional to the thickness of the medium, whereas Beer's law, the decrease in intensity is proportional to the concentration of the solution. So when you join these two laws together, then it has become Beer-Lambert's law. Then everybody, they came Lambert, you told thickness, and whereas the Beer, he has told about the concentration. Both are correct, which means that when you pass the amount of incident radiation through an transparent absorbing medium, the decrease in intensity of incident radiation is proportional to both the thickness and concentration of the solution. That is what we used to call it as Beer-Lambert's law. See here I have given, when a beam of monochromatic radiation passes through a solution containing an absorbing substance, the amount of light absorbed by a solution is proportional to the concentration of the absorbing medium or the substance and thickness of the absorbing solution. Concentration means Beer, thickness means Lambert's law. Both put together only we used to call it as Beer-Lambert's law. Without studying this laws of absorption, you cannot touch UV visible spectrophotometer. The same derivation, I am not going to change anything. I will tell you what is epsilon and later. The same thing, di by I is equal to epsilon C dx. So I have used the K in Lambert's. In Beer law, I have used the K prime. I want to use some other constant, hence I have used this E. This is not E, this is called epsilon. So I have to integrate. So when you integrate di by I, which is nothing but log I, now I by I naught is the limit. So minus epsilon C has and x, y minus sign indicates that minus sign indicates the decrease in intensity of incident radiation. Now when you put substitute the limits, log I by I naught is equal to minus epsilon BC. So you have to take the negative sign, means you have to reverse that I naught by I. So log I naught by I is equal to epsilon BC. So I can write that log I naught by I is equal to epsilon BC as A. What is A? Absorption. So what do you mean by say absorption of light in the transparent medium is proportional to both B. What is my B? B is the thickness of the absorbing substance, and what is C? C is the concentration of the absorbing solution. So this is called Beer-Lambert's law. I think I made it clear. Lambert means thickness. Beer means concentration. Beer-Lambert's law means it is proportional to both thickness and concentration of the solution. So what is the definition? A is equal to epsilon BC. A is equal to epsilon BC. So I have written it here. So what is epsilon? Epsilon is nothing but the molar absorption coefficient or molar extinction coefficient. I told you why we are calling it as molar, and any symbol you can use, but they have used the Beer-Lambert's law, the Beer-Lambert, and they have used that epsilon. So we are also supposed to use the same symbol epsilon. In some book they will give D. It's not a matter at all. Any symbol you can use. So A is equal to epsilon BC is nothing but the B-Lambert's law. I could see in many question paper. This is a very famous question. At least it will come for 10 marks or 12 marks. This is the base for the UV visible spectrophotometer. Without knowing this B-Lambert's law, you cannot study the UV visible spectrophotometer. Now the symbolic manner I have explained here. Now you take, this is the solution, so which contains the transparent absorbing, that is the dilute solution. The solution is transparent means dilute. Don't think that madam it's supposed to be what, it's not like that. It may be any colored solution. It may be a blue color, it may be a pink color, any color present in the color, but it has to be a dilute solution. That is, solvent concentration should be more and the solute concentration should be less. Now I am passing the incident light, so it is traveling to the absorbing medium, my solution, and this is the cell I have taken. So when it transfers here, it is transmitted, correct? Now when it is transmitted, whatever the light I am sending, this I naught and I, so I will be always less than I naught. Why? Because some amount of the light is absorbed by the solution concentration and some amount of the light is absorbed by the thickness of the medium. This is a schematic representation of B-Lambert's law. I think I made it clear. B-Lambert's law, one famous question. And what is the limitation? See, advantages, you can talk multiple amount of advantages. It is we can calculate the unknown concentration of any solution. So now I am giving 4 to 5 different solutions, means now you will calculate each concentration by using the B-Lambert's law, and you have to plot absorbance versus the concentration. When you plot absorbance versus the concentration, you will get all the concentration. When you plot it, you can calculate the unknown concentration by using the graph. So that is the only advantage. But the thing is, whatever may be the solution you are using, the solution should be only dilute solution. So that is the only limitations. It is applicable only for dilute solution. It is not applicable for concentrated solution. When you take concentrated solution, what will happen, madam? Concentration is more means solute particles is more. When you have the more solute particles, so what will happen? Light, when it passes through it, the solute particles will hinder the light. Now whatever you calculate the lambda max, that is the absorption maximum, may not be equivalent to the solution. It may be something less or something higher than that. That's why this law is not applicable for the concentrated solution. This is only for the dilute solutions. Second one is UV visible spectrophotometer. Before I start UV visible spectrophotometer, first you should know what is a spectrometer. A spectrometer means, meter means instrument, spectro. So you are going to analyze something. For example, you keep any compound, you are getting a spectra. ECG is a spectra, correct? The heart ECG. So it is an instrument which will record the spectra of the molecules. Is it clear? Spectrophotometer means in presence of light. It is an instrument used for measuring the intensity of light which is transmitted or emitted by a specific substance. What is UV visible spectrophotometer? Spectrometer means is an instrument. Spectrophotometer means in presence of light. What is UV visible spectrophotometer? So it is an instrument which covers the UV visible region. Do you understand? Which covers only the UV visible region. Hence the name called UV visible spectrophotometer. What is the principle, madam, for UV visible spectrophotometer? Means the principle is nothing but the B-Lambert's law. You have to study B-Lambert's law. Thickness and concentration and amount of light. These three things you have to understand. A is equal to epsilon B. That is the principle behind the UV visible spectrophotometer. Before I go for UV visible spectrophotometer, just a glimpse. You should understand what is meant by electromagnetic radiation. So this is the electromagnetic radiation. You might be knowing. Now I have given it in increasing wavelength and decreasing frequency. Increasing wavelength, gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet, infrared. These rays we don't want, that microwave rays and all we don't want. I will concentrate only here. Ultraviolet, infrared, in between visible light will come. You understand? So UV and visible and then IR. So these two spectrometer only I am going to teach you. So this is the range of the spectrophotometer. Now, instrumentation. So before I start, you use the spectrophotometer. So what is the principle? Beer-Lambert's law is this principle. So you know amount of light decreasing is proportional to the what? Thickness and concentration of the solution and the substance. Now instrumentation, UV visible spectrophotometer. So this is the diagram. See, this PPT I made only for you purpose students. So whatever I'm giving, the same thing you can write in the examination point. I did not go too much and all. What is necessary, that is only I made it as a PPT. Now UV visible spectrophotometer, they are asking means you have to write what is UV visible spectrophotometer. Then immediately you have to start what are the components. What are the components are present? Source, light, source of radiation, light should be there. What light we should use? UV visible light. I will tell you what kind of source. It will give you the UV and visible light. The second one is monochromator and sample cell, detector, display and recorder. Everything I kept it in this diagram. Is such a simple block diagram. Everybody can practice and get good mark. First UV visible, here hydrogen or deuterium. Next slide I will show you what are all the examples we are going to use. So this is a UV visible source and then the monochromator. So what is the use of monochromator? Everybody knows monochromator is a source. It may be a quartz prism or it may be a silica, whatever it may be, it's all depending upon. Here we are using the quartz prism. And what is the duty of the monochromator? Means when you send a the light will be like this polychromatic radiation. When it passes through a monochromatic medium, when it comes back, what will happen? It comes like a single light with a narrow wavelength. Why, madam, single light? Because I want to analyze only a single solution at a time. I don't want to analyze so many solutions. So what is the lambda max for that particular solution? That light wavelength only I want. So that's why we are keeping monochromator before the source. So source, I will send the light. Light will come in all the direction. The monochromator will split all the light like this, and after this you will get only a single light. Now this light is going to the sector mirror. Sector mirror is a grating element or a prism. So what it will do, it will split the light into two. Do you see two beams? Here one beam and here one beam. Is it clear? Sector mirror will split the monochromatic light into two. That is a mirror. I'm just deviating like grating. You would have played a grating element. Now one goes to the sample and other one goes to the reference. Why, madam, I should use? You can ask one sample and one reference. Why? In the sense, suppose your sample is a solid sample, UV visible will not work. It will work only for the solution. So in such cases, what you will do means, you will take the solid, you will dissolve it in some solvent. There are some solid samples will dissolve in water. There are some solid samples will dissolve in organic solvents. So what is the solvent you are going to use? The same solvent, you will keep it as a reference. I am making it clear. Suppose NaCl you are measuring, means NaCl you know pretty well it is soluble in water. Now what is my reference I should keep? Water as the reference I should keep. Is it clear? The sample and the reference. Suppose you take some other organic moiety, for example phenol. Phenol is not soluble in water, sparingly soluble. In such case I may use any organic solvent. Suppose I am using ether as the organic solvent, means so I have to keep reference as the ether. So that is the sample and reference. Now the light passes here and passes here. Reference should not absorb any radiation. That is the logic. Only sample should absorb. These light signals will come here and reach to the detector. So what is the role of detector? The detector may be a photo multiplier or photo emissive, like that. You can use any detector. What is the role of the detector? Means the detector will convert all the light signal. Correct? You are sending, so far you send only the light signal through the sample or the reference. All the light signal will be converted into electrical signal. Why, madam, we should convert all the light into electrical? Because we are going to record, you are going to display. Where you will display only in the computer. Computer requires only the electrons or the electrical signal. Now this detector will convert all the light signal into electrical signal. So this is the display is the computer. Computer will, I will show you the graph. It's a beautiful graph and you will get the graph here. And I told you, no. So what is the source you are using? So you are using hydrogen discharge lamp or deuterium. No need to write any sentences. Source, hydrogen or deuterium lamp. Any one, not both. Any one of the lamp you can use. Or both also you can use. For one is for UV and one is for deuterium. But the hydrogen and deuterium both will work for UV and visible light. And what is my monochromator? As I told you, monochromator is nothing but it disperses the polychromatic radiation into a single wavelength narrow light. So I can use the quartz prism or grating element. And third one is sample holder. What is sample holder? Where you're going to keep the sample, or the reference solution is the sample holder. Sometimes you call it a cell, or sometimes you'll call it a squat also. It is made up of quartz. Quartz, it will be like this, and the path length will be always maximum 1 centimeter. It's all depending upon the instrumentation. Some people, they want 2 centimeter, means they will give 2 centimeter. But normally we use only the 1 centimeter path length. That it will be like this. There you will pour the solution, and you will keep it inside the UV visible spectrophotometer. And a sector mirror, I have shown you know. So this is called the sector mirrors. So that sector mirror, it will split the beams into 2 parallel. Why 2 parallel? One has to pass to the sample and one has to pass to the reference. You can ask why, madam, why we can keep one sample here and one reference here. So that is also possible. That is called single beam UV visible spectrophotometer. That is resolution is not that much high when you use the single beam UV visible spectrophotometer. That's why I have taken double beam. Why double beam? I am just splitting the beam into 2 beams, hence it is called double beam spectrophotometer. You understand? Single beam you can also use. It's a low of cost, but resolution will be less. So I want 560, means it will not show the 560, it will be only 480. You see the difference 80, so I will be getting an error. So that's why we are going for the double beam UV visible spectrophotometer. So this is a sector mirror. So what are the common solvents you can use? Ethanol, methanol, chloroform, hexane. But always they will use 95% ethanol is always used commonly. And detectors, as I told you, photovoltaic, photo multiplier, photo emissive. So these are the detectors you can use commonly. What is the role of the detector? Detector will convert the light signal into electrical signal. And next one is the recorder. Recorder is nothing but the displaying the signal. Whatever you got, that light signal is converted electrical signal. Those electrical signal will go to the computer, because computer records only the electrons, the current. It will see only the coding system. That coding system will be converted. It will take in the absorbance or transmittance, both. A solution which is having 100% absorbance will have 0% transmittance. Both can be correct, but absorbance A is equal to 1 by T. Absorbance and transmittance are inversely related to each other. So that absorbance or transmittance is recorded against the wavelength of the incident beam. I will show you the graph. So this is the graph. Any graph you can take. I didn't put any lambda, any specific lambda on that. So you take in the y-axis absorbance and in the x-axis lambda max. Lambda is wavelength at max. How much absorption is possible for that particular solution when you keep that solution in UV visible spectrophotometer. That is what UV visible spectrophotometer. So this is the graph you will be obtained. I didn't put any, this is a graph you will be obtained. If you want to specifically get for any compound, you can search in Google. That graph also you can put, and we have written some notes also. In that also we have given certain examples. That examples also you can take. And these are all the applications. And it is used for the identification of unknown organic samples. Any sample you put, no, it will give the absorption peak. That absorption peak, you will have the standard reference table. So in that reference table, you go and see, means suppose 560 means what is it? It may be due to benzoic acid, or it may be due to aldehyde. So you have to compare. And it is used for purity check of this. Any samples you want to check the purity. That is how will you absorbance is correct. Plus or minus 10 will be always allowed. Suppose exactly it is falling on the same as the absorbance, then the sample is 100% pure. If it is not falling, means it is purity will be less. And it is used for chemical kinetics of the reaction. That is progress of the reaction, rate of the reaction. Everything you can determine by using this. And used for dissociation constant of weak acids and weak bases. So once you calculate the absorbance, you have to substitute in the Henderson's equation, and you have to calculate the weak acids and weak base. And it is used for studying the electronic structure of molecules. Any electronic structure, for example, for phenol is there. Correct? So that structural elucidation, and you will not get the full information. Any light OH group is there, or benzene moiety is there, means that benzene moiety will get 1 absorption maximum, and for OH group you will get 1. So you can slightly conclude that you have like 2 functional groups. One will be like OH, and like that it will be useful. And only drawback here in UV visible spectrophotometer, whatever I told for the Beer-Lambert's law, the same drawback here also. These is applicable only for the liquid solution, and it is applicable only for the dilute solution. When you increase the concentration, definitely these laws of absorption will not favor it. It will show the absorbance value, no doubt about it, but it may not be correct. It is not 100% correct. It may be 20, 30 or 40. Resolution will be very, very less when you use the concentration solution. So UV visible spectrophotometer works on B-Lambert's law, principal laws of absorption. So first question is B-Lambert's law. Second question is UV visible spectrophotometer. I'm going topic wise only, you will get the questions. And the third one is IR spectrophotometer. Now you know what is spectrophotometer. UV visible means it will cover the UV visible range. I have shown the electromagnetic radiation also. Now this is the IR spectrophotometer, means it will cover the IR region. So UV, IR, in between visible. It is the higher wavelength. IR means higher wavelength, lower frequency. That is what I have given. So it is a spectroscopy which deals with IR region of electromagnetic spectrum with longer wavelength and lower frequency than visible light. Am I right? Now, what is the principle? There, what is the principle? Absorption of light. Here, what is the principle? Absorption of energy. Principles you should be very clear when you are writing the spectroscopic technique. What is the principle? Absorption of energy. Once it absorbs the energy, it will not keep quiet. What it will do, it will undergo some transition. You would have studied, you might be knowing what are all the types of transitions are possible. Sigma to sigma star, pi to pi star, n to pi star, n to sigma star, n to n star, it is not there. So those are all the transitions. Once I take any energy into my what, I will not keep it, I have to jump. So all star, 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 that and all anti-bonding orbitals, all n sigma, that and all lower bonding molecular orbitals. All these details you don't require. That is called electronic transitions. Is it clear? When a molecule should undergo any IR, that is when a molecule should absorb IR radiation, means it should have certain qualities. What are the qualities? That is called conditions. What are the qualities it should have? Means there should be change in dipole moment in the molecule during the vibration. Ma'am, what is meant by dipole? Dipole moment is nothing but you have two molecules. Now you take like these two molecules. Here one O is there, here one C is there. You know, carbon will have the positive, oxygen will have the negative. So slightly positive, slightly negative. So this is called polar molecule. So whenever you take the polar molecule, definitely there will be change in dipole moment. Dipole moment we use to represent it as mu. Change in dipole moment. That is the first condition. Clear? Next, energy of IR radiation must match the energy difference between the two vibration levels. Whatever you sending the IR energy and difference between the vibrations, those should match. Then only those molecules will absorb the IR radiation. So what's the first condition? Change in dipole moment. What's the second condition? Energy of the IR should match with the energy difference between the two vibration levels. When a molecule satisfies these two conditions only, those molecules will absorb IR radiation and it will undergo the electronic transition. I told no vibrations. What is meant by vibration? There are normally two vibrations. So many are there. I will two vibrations: stretching and bending. This is not there, but still I will teach you. Stretching. What is stretching? Symmetric, asymmetric. Both. This is symmetric. One going like this. One comes this asymmetric. Bending. What is bending? So you have a molecule like this. Bending means in plane means, so this is the plane means it is bending like this. It is bending like this. So this is in plane bending. Out plane means when it is bending like this or bending like this. So this is called out plane bending. When it will happen? When a molecule have change in dipole moment. When a molecule absorb that energy difference or equal, in such cases only it will undergo some sort of vibration. It may be symmetric vibration. Symmetric vibration means two types are there. It may be symmetric or asymmetric. And bending, you have like two types: in plane bending and out plane bending. I am not going in depth of that symmetric, asymmetric and all. Just I want to let you know what are the types of vibrations. Next, same components I did not change. Whatever I gave it for the UV visible spectrophotometer, the same thing I have given here. For IR also you write the same: source of radiation, sample cell, monochromator, detector, amplifier, and recorder. There I would have put a display and recorder. It's okay, fine, nothing will wrong. And here source, I should use the IR source. I will teach you what is the source I'm going to use. And here I have the monochromator. And in some books, they will keep the monochromator after the sector mirror, and both are correct only. I'm keeping it here. And what is the role of monochromator? Monochromator will split up the polychromatic radiation into monochromatic light. Okay, this monochromatic radiation passes through the sector mirror. The same principle, nothing, so same, both same diagram, sector mirror, and one goes to here and one goes to here. Why two prisms are there? One goes to the sample cell and other one goes to the reference cell. So this sample cell and reference cell both goes to the detector. That is, after undergoing some sort of vibration, it goes to the detector. The detector, what is the role of detector? You must be knowing now. The detector will convert all the light signal into electrical signal, and it will display in the computer. Same block diagram, same thing. You put the instrumentation and you write everything like this. So UV and visible both are one and the same. Their absorption of light, their absorption of energy. The slight variation, but two, when you are reading both simultaneously, you should read. And what is the source? Nernst glower. What is Nernst glower? It's a tube made up of zirconium, yttrium, and thorium. I did not use too much sentences also because student point of view, I made this notes especially for you people. And glober. Glober is cylindrical rod made up of the silicon carbide. What is the source in UV visible spectrophotometer? It is hydrogen lamp or deuterium lamp. Sample cells. There I told you quartz. Here sample cells made up of NaCl. Whereas in UV visible spectrophotometer, you will use only the liquid solution. Now you see the beauty here in IR spectrophotometer, gas, liquid and solid, any samples you can use. Suppose if it is a gas sample taken in long, 10 centimeter long cell, if it is a liquid sample, it has to be placed between the two discs of the cell. If it is a solid sample, it has to made into malt by grinding with new jar, or it has to be made it as a pellet by using the KBr solution. Is it clear? And what is the solvent you will use? CCl for carbon tetrachloride and carbon disulfide, etc. There ethanol, methanol, hexane. You compare and then it will be very, very easy. Monochromator. So what is the role of monochromator? Monochromator separates the polychromatic radiation into single wavelength. And what is the monochromator I'm using? There I have used the quartz prism, and here it is not so. NaCl, LiF, calcium fluoride, etc. And what is the detector? Detector, as I told you, it converts the light signal into electrical signal. There in UV visible, I have used photo multiplier, photo MSU, and photoconductive. Here also the same, but I have changed a little bit. Photovoltaic, I did not change. That is what they have been using. So photo common I have given. Did you understand? Both common I have given, so that both common you read and you apply for both the questions. So photovoltaic, photoconductive, bolometer, thermocouples, etc. So these are the detectors which were commonly used in IR spectrophotometer. Amplifier and recorder. The electrical detector will convert all the light signal into electrical signal. The electrical signal is amplified by using the digital converter like that, and it is converted into percentage transmittance, and it is recorded against the wave number. Whereas in UV, absorbance or transmittance is recorded against what? Wavelength. Here transmittance only, not the absorbance. Transmittance is recorded against the function of the wave number. I will show you the picture. Now I have taken one good picture from, this is only from the, even from the NCERT book, benzoic acid. It's the infrared spectrum of benzoic acid. Now you see in the x-axis they have taken the wave number, in the y-axis they have taken the transmittance. Don't see all these lines. So this is the line you will get. Whereas in UV you will get the upward graph. Whereas in the IR you will get the downward graph like this. So this is the transmittance. Absorbance and transmittance both are different. Correct? Now transmittance means it should come down only. Water have 100% absorbance, 0% transmittance. Same thing I am teaching here. Now this is the graph for the benzoic acid. And applications, same, more or less same applications. UV are visible, but IR is little bit higher. Why? Gas, a liquid, and the solid sample you can identify by using the IR spectrophotometer. Whereas in UV, only the liquid samples. Both are one and the same. UV is applicable only for dilute solution. Here I did not tell anything like that. It is applicable. You understand? And applications used for identification of functional group and structural elucidation, used for studying the progress of the reaction, used for detection of impurities present in the sample, used in qualitative analysis. See, when you see the applications where the UV and IR both are commonly matching, those applications only I have given. So once you complete that UV, you will not find any difficulty for reading this IR spectrophotometer. I think I made it clear. Only one limitations, some few limitations. We don't go for UV normally, we will go for only IR as a chemist. The limitations, molecular weight cannot be predicted. So you can identify the functional group. Benzene is there, or phenol is there, or amine is there, but you do not know what is the bulk molecular weight of the compound. All these things you cannot identify, and it does not provide any information about the positional group. For example, chlorophenol, I do not know whether the chlorine is present in the first position or second position, third. That information it will not give, but it will give chlorine is there, for phenol group is there, benzene is there. For all these things you will get a peak, but I do not know how it will be coming like this. So that information will not be getting by using the IR spectrophotometer. Next question. So UV over IR over UV, Beer-Lambert's laws of absorption. IR spectrophotometer, change in dipole moment or the energy difference should be equal to the IR, and that is the principle. So both are one at the same. So when you concentrate and you make the tabular column, when you read, you can complete both the equation. Among these two, one will be sure for the examination point of view. The second one is thermal analysis. Very easy topic, thermal analysis. Thermal. What is meant by thermal? Thermal means temperature, heat. You are giving heat. Analysis. Analysis means you are analyzing something. It may be a liquid, it may be a solid, whatever it may be. Okay. Thermal analysis means by applying the temperature, you are analyzing a compound nature. What is the compound? So that is called thermal analysis. In the beginning, I told you like three or the TGA, DTA, DSC. Now I am going to explain what is TGA, what is DTA, and what is DSC. So what is the definition for thermal analysis? It is a technique which monitors the change in physical property, not the chemical change. Physical change means what? Phase transition. You take sulfur, monoclinic, sulfur, rhombic. Did you understand? That is phase transition, crystallization, melting, freezing, dehydration. All these are called physical properties. So it's a technique which monitors the change in physical properties such as weight, temperature, or enthalpy of a material as a function of temperature. That is called thermal analysis. Sometimes you may get it in 2-mark question also. Define thermal analysis. Change in physical property when you apply temperature. What is the change? Weight may change, temperature may change, or enthalpy may change. What is weight, temperature, enthalpy? That is dehydration, melting, freezing. That is only, I mean, is it clear? And types. How many types are there? 3 types are there. First one is TGA. T, thermogravimetric analysis. The name itself, you have to be very clear. The name itself will give you thermo. Thermo means heat. Gravi means weight analysis. When you give temperature, when you give heat, what is happening in TGA? Weight of the sample is varying. That is why the name called thermogravimetric analysis. Weight versus temperature. Weight means change in weight versus temperature. What is meant by DTA? Differential thermal analysis. That is, when you apply the temperature, what is the difference in temperature? Now, when you take TGA, you read only one compound. You don't have any reference material. When you take DTA, you will have the sample as well as the reference material. Then only you can talk about the delta T. You understand, sample and reference both are required for the DTA. Whereas in TGA, you require only a single sample so that what is happening in that hydration. What is happening when you apply the heat. That you understand. And DSC. DSC means differential scanning calorimetry. Calorimetry means what? Heat. Now you supply some excess heat or you will reduce the heat. By supplying excess or reducing the heat, you will see what is happening in the molecule, what is happening in that particular molecule when you keep on increasing the temperature. Did you understand or not? Difference in temperature. Here, what's the difference between, you can ask, madam, both are same. What is the difference, madam? See, DTA means sample reference temperature is plotted against temperature. Here, sample reference temperature should be always 0. That is, my delta T should be 0. There are some reactions, it may be endothermic. Endothermic means what? Decrease in temperature. Exothermic means increase in temperature. Whenever the sample increase the temperature rather than the reference material, I have to give excess heat to suppress it. You understand? Whenever there is a decrease in temperature, there is a, for endothermic reaction like melting, freezing, etc., the sample will undergo the decrease in temperature. So what you have to increase the sample temperature to reach into 0. So my delta T will be always 0 between the sample and the reference. Either I will increase the heat flow or decrease the heat flow such that to make delta T 0. That when you plot against the sample temperature, then it is called differential scanning. You are scanning heat flow. When you decrease, when you increase, what is happening? You will not increase, you will not decrease. The sample will tell you, will show, then only will increase or decrease. So these are the 3. Don't think, madam, 3, not 3 questions. All the 3 are very, very important, very, very simple. I will teach in an elegant manner. You can get out of these 3, 1 question will be sure. First one is TGA, thermogravimetric analysis. So as I told you, it's a technique in which change in weight of the sample is recorded as a function of temperature. Weight versus temperature, that is change in weight versus temperature. So what is the principle? When a sample is subjected to heating, when you are heating a sample, the sample will undergo dehydration, decomposition, or volatilization, or any other change. When you heat, it has to undergo some sort of changes. When it is undergoing some sort of changes, so what is the net result? The net result will be change in weight, loss of weight, and it is recorded against temperature. This is the principle. Now, when you plot change in weight versus temperature, then it is called TGA thermogram. When you plot it for DTA, then it is called DTA thermogram. Then it is DAC means DA thermogram. Gram, thermo, don't think thermogram means it's a graph. By heating, you are getting a graph. TGA, you are getting means TGA thermogram. You are obtaining the graph in DTA means DTA thermogram. In DSC means DSC thermogram. Clear? Now, so once you written the principle, I made a very short principle and instrumentation sample. What you have to do first, I will show you the diagram, log diagram. First, you have to take a few grams of the sample in a platinum crucible, because these experiments will carry out up to 1,000, 1,500, like that only will carry out. You cannot use any like glass crucibles for this purpose. You have to use only the platinum crucible, because platinum crucible alone will sustain such temperatures. Is it clear? Now, this is the instrumentation part. You have to take the few grams of the sample in a platinum crucible, and it was connected to a balance. Balance, without balance, how will you measure the change in weight? Is it clear? Now, the entire setup, you have to the balance and the sample setup, entire thing, you have to keep it inside the furnace. Why, madam, furnace? Furnace only will provide the necessary temperature. You understand? Balance will be here. Above you will have something, and you will have that pan will be there. There only you will keep the platinum crucible. In that platinum crucible only a known weight of the sample will be. The entire set you have to keep it inside the furnace. Is it clear? Now you will have a thermocouple. That thermocouple will read the furnace temperature. How much you are getting at 100 or 200 or 300. It's all up to the your sample. The sample melting point, based on that, and you have to keep the furnace temperature. You can heat the sample by 1 degree rise per minute. It's all depending upon your instrumentation. 1 degree rise per minute or 2 degree rise per minute. It's all up depending upon your. But normally we used to do 1 degree per minute, 2 degree per, like that. You have to see the slow changes and what is happening in that particular sample. So always keep the temperature as 1 degree per minute, like this. Is it clear? Now that is what I have given here in thermobalance. It is placed inside the tubular furnace, balance furnace. Thermocouple measures the furnace temperature which is attached to the crucible. Whenever there is a change in weight, the balance beam will deviate from its usual. Correct? Balance will be like this. Pan will be here, and you will keep the crucible. Whenever there is a change in weight, what will happen? The balance will deviate. It will be here means it will deviate this side or that side. When anyone said the balance beam will deviate. How long it will deviate? How long the change will occur? It may start from 100 degree. It may end up till 200 to 200. That loss keep on continuing. After that, it will be stable. Correct? Each component. I will show you the graph. Then you will have a clear explanation, and it will be stable, and again it will go down and it will be stable. How long the sample loses its weight, till that time you will have a decrease in temperature, the balance beam will deviate. Is it clear? Now there will be a restoring force, again it will go to the original position. That's why the entire setup is called null point balance. They will ask what is meant by null point balance. Now sensor detects the deviation and initiates a force which will restore the balance of the null position. That's why the entire balance is called null point balance. And this restoring force is proportional to the change in weight. Now this change in weight only you have to mark it or record against the sample temperature. The entire furnace atmosphere, you know, you have to keep up by using by sending some inert gases like nitrogen, helium, argon, etc. Is it clear? So you have to talk about that. See, listen here. The sample and instrumentation, in the instrumentation, sample and the thermobalance and the data processor and recorder. The computer records the TGA thermogram by plotting, I told you already, change in weight versus temperature. Now this is what, so now this is the source. What is the source? Furnace temperature controller is the source, and you have the discriminator. Discriminator is nothing but the, as I told you, sorry, you have the balance or sorry, crucible and the balance. You will keep the sample over here. Do you understand? Now this entire thing will be inside the furnace only. Outside only you will have the computer. I think I made it clear. Is it clear? Now whenever the sample undergoes some changes, this is the balance will deviate from its original position. This change in weight will be recorded here, mass and temperature from the balance. At particular temperature, what is the change in weight? At particular temperature, what is the change in weight? That will be recorded from the balance and the mass temperature data. This is called the detector. These signals will go to the output, means is only computer. Analog digital converter will be there, will convert all the data into the electrical signal. So at last PC will give you only the graph. All the information you will feed inside the what you want in the x-axis and what you are going to expect in the y, everything you have to feed. This data will be, it's all like inbuilt one. You don't want to do it separate, inbuilt one. Whatever is happening, but TGA data and it will go for hours together, because the sample has to go slowly one by one, because you are raising the temperature to 1 degree rise per minute, and it will show you the details like this. And this is the block diagram. And this is what, for example, I have taken one example, calcium oxalate monohydrate. So I have taken this example. Now you see here, though I am not specific about, but I have given the tabular column also. Now till this, for example, 130, I think so. Now till 130 degrees Celsius, okay, it is not undergoing any change here. See, it is stable. After reaching this temperature, it is undergoing change in weight. What is the change in weight? The water molecule starts losing. Again, this calcium oxalate is standard up to, for example, 300 or 350 degrees Celsius. No change. Here, again, there will be loss due to CO. And again, you have the calcium carbonate. This is the, so all horizontal portion will show you the stability of the compound. All vertical regions will show you the loss. Here, 3 losses are there. One due to water, one due to CO, and another one due to carbon dioxide. At last, you will get. So now you see what is the starting product, calcium oxalate monohydrate, and what is my product, calcium oxide. After this, it will not undergo any decomposition. So this is the last step. Did you understand? So weight loss versus stem. This is the graph you will get in TGA. Step, we used to call it a step graph or down graph. Okay, horizontal means stability. This vertical line means loss. Not only for this, you can take one more example, copper sulfate pentahydrate, but due to lack of time, I didn't put it here. Only the one example I have taken. Now that then you have to get the tabular column. Now I told you, no, till this region, no change. That is the horizontal. This is a vertical. What is the change? Loss of water. Correct? So this is the temperature. Again, I told you, no, calcium oxalate stability, no change. Again here 400 to 470, that the down graph, it is due to the loss of CO. And again stability of calcium carbonate. Again that calcium carbonate decomposed into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So this is a decrease in mass. After when you heat 842,000 till 2000 breed, whatever it may be, what will happen? So nothing will happen, because that is the stability of calcium oxide, because calcium oxide will not undergo any decomposition. So you must be knowing. And this is the application used in thermal analysis of thermal decomposition of inorganic salts, used in studying complex and thermal reactions, used in the determination of alloys and mixtures. Now you see, where you have the highest temperature, those materials only they are doing it here. Used in qualitative analysis of oxidations of alloys. I think I made it clear. This thermogravimetric analysis. And second one is differential thermal analysis. Same thing, but slightly different. Whereas in TGA, you take only one sample. You don't have any difference. Here, difference. Whenever you talk about difference, you should take two. One should be the sample, and second one should be the reference. Always keep that in mind in DTA or in a DSC. I will use alpha alumina as a reference material. Reference material, keep that in mind. Reference material should not undergo any change. It is only a reference. By reference, what is happening in the sample. For that only I will use like a catalyst. It will enhance. It will help the reaction to occur, but it will not interfere in the mode of the reaction. You understand? And what's the definition? It is the technique in which temperature difference between the sample and the reference is measured as a function of temperature. So what is the principle? When you heat the sample, it undergoes transitions like melting, dehydration, etc. So what will happen? There will be liberation or absorption of energy by the sample with respect to reference. Here you use reference, correct? That's what I told. The temperature may decrease or the temperature may increase when it comes down, because you may have two types of reaction. Excuse me, endothermic reaction and exothermic reaction. Endothermic means it will go up. Exothermic means it will go up. Endothermic means it will come down. So depending upon that only, you will get a plot like this. So according to this only, you will have the graph. So this leads to endothermic and exothermic reaction, which may decrease or increase the sample temperature. Hence, a plot of delta T versus temperature will give you a DTA thermogram. Again, the same instrumentation. So I am using the sample holder. Sample holder means what? That should be a platinum crucible. I have to hold the sample. Now there in TGA, I have used only one crucible, platinum crucible, because I used only the sample, no reference material. Here I have to use both sample and reference material. Is it clear? Now the sample and reference material I have indicated here, alpha alumina, is placed in separate platinum crucibles and connected to a microbalance. Sensitive balance should be there, but balance data I will take where in TGA. Here I don't want balance data, only the difference in temperature alone I will take. Now the samples are heated and measured by an individual thermocouples. Sample temperature is recorded separately and reference temperature is recorded separately. Now the entire setup I will keep it inside the furnace temperature controller. The sample holder assembly is placed inside the furnace. The sample and the reference is heated up to 1500 degrees Celsius. Same there 700 or 800, 900. It's all depending upon your compound stability, you have to fix it. Is it clear? Now the materials are heated 1 degree rise per minute or 100 degrees Celsius. It's all depending upon your requirement, you have to choose. The furnace temperature, as usual, it is controlled by passing inert gases such as nitrogen, helium, argon, etc. This is a furnace temperature control where only you will keep both platinum and the platinum crystals, which holds the sample and reference material. So this is the data processor and recorder. Here, their change in weight versus temperature. Here, what you will measure, difference in temperature between the sample and the reference is plotted against sample temperature. Now, what is the plot? Delta T versus T will give you the DTA thermogram. The diagram more or less same, but slightly different. You have to see this. And this is the furnace temperature controller. Here you have the two pans, one for the sample and other one for the reference material. Correct? Sample and other one for the reference material. So these data, it was separately heated, and temperatures are measured by individual if at all you want, you put one line here and one line here, you write a thermocouples, and you put a line, horizontal line, you make it as delta T, anything you can do. And that difference in temperature will be recorded by the detector. These signals will go to the ADC, again analog digital converter, and it will go to the PC for a graph. PC means personal computer. Now this is the graph you will get. I told you, no, there are some reactions which have positive temperature, that is called exothermic reaction or exotherm. Thermogram, exothermic, it is called. So there are some reactions which undergo endothermic reaction, that is called endotherm. So you will get two types of graphs, endothermic reaction and exothermic reaction, depending upon the temperature difference between the sample and the reference material. Whereas in TGA, you will get only one type of graph. That stepwise graph, down step graph you will get. You will not get exothermic or endothermic. So TGA, then higher version is DTA. Is it clear? Now, I've taken one example for the polymer, and you see like crystallization, oxidation, no onset of oxidation, melting. You keep on doing heat. There are some showing upwards, these and all exothermic reaction, the downward and all endothermic reaction. So melting, I told you already, melting, freezing, hydration and all endothermic, crystallization, oxidation, because it requires high temperature, that and all exothermic reaction. This is what you will get. Now see here, exothermic and endothermic, you are plotting delta T versus sample temperature. So this is the application. It is used to provide informations like fusion, dehydration, oxidation, reduction, etc. or phase transition in the phase diagram. All this information you used to get from the DTA, and used for determining the melting and boiling point of organic compounds, used for characterizing the polymer mixture. Everything you can do it by using the DTA, differential thermal analysis. And the third one is, under thermal analysis, third one is differential scanning calorimeter. Same definition, slightly modify, and you have to write. It's a technique in which difference in heat flow. There you will write difference in temperature between the sample and reference. Here, difference in heat flow between the sample and reference is measured as the function of temperature. The principle, the sample, same thing. The sample and reference are heated by using separate electrical heaters. Both sample and reference should be kept in the platinum crucible. Whenever the sample undergoes any endothermic or exothermic, what you have to do, you have to adjust the sample temperature by increasing or decreasing the sample temperature. So how much amount of heat flow you are supplying, so that what is the necessary condition, delta T should be always 0. That's why you are increasing or decreasing temperature. How much amount of heat flow you have given, that has to be plotted against sample temperature. Hence, a plot of delta H versus temperature will give you the DSC thermogram. Again, the same instrumentation part I have given, the sample and the reference material. Here also, you will use the same reference material, alpha alumina. Both sample and reference material are placed in a platinum crucible, which is connected to a sensitive microbalance. The sample and reference is heated, and the temperature is measured by an individual thermocouples. This entire setup, you have to keep it in a furnace temperature controller. As I told you, it's the same thing only. What is that? Temperature, the sample and the reference material is heated up to 700 degrees Celsius. Temperature, there is no fixed temperature depending upon the material, and you have to increase the temperature 1 degree per minute to 100 degrees Celsius per minute. It's all about the requirements. The furnace temperature has to be maintained in the inert gases like nitrogen, hydrogen, argon, etc. Inert gases, it should not be reactive gases. That is, it should not react with the material. That's why I have to use only the inert gases in all the three cases. And what will happen, data processor and recorder means it will record all the difference in heat flow between the sample and the reference material will be recorded, and it was given to the display. And this is what you will give, endothermic and exothermic. I have shown you the graph. So this is what endothermic, exothermic and endothermic. Here you will see only the delta H is equal to 0. Temperature, did you understand or not? So temperature should be increasing or decreasing depending upon the requirement. Now The applications, it is used in the fast transition of polymers, biological samples, used in calculating enthalpy of transitions like enthalpy of melting, enthalpy of fusion, etc. A full heat flow, by supplying the heat flow, you will record. And it is an accurate method for determining melting, boiling points of any organic compound. That is, compared to DTA, DAC we have very good fine-tuning results, will be far better. So TGA and then DTA and then DSC. So depending upon the requirement, the instrument size, everything will be costly only. I think I made it clear. So for 5, UV visible spectrophotometer, IR spectrophotometer, thermal analysis. In the thermal analysis, 3 are there: TGA, DTA and DSC. So when you are reading, don't read only TGA or don't read only DTA or DSC. Both compare and read, both are one at the same. You make a tabular column, it's the same notes you can write, you will all get good marks. Now I made one tabular column. Sometimes you will read all the 3. They will ask you to compare, differentiate between TGA, DTA, DSC. You will be like, in that examination, you will be like showing the blank face how to, now I have made some differences. Definitely you will get mark. Now TGA, DTA and DSC. What you are doing in TGA, weight versus temperature, correct? What you are doing in DTA, delta T versus temperature. What you are doing in DSC, difference in heat flow versus sample temperature. Now, what is the property you are measuring in TGA? Change in weight. Here, heat evolved or absorbed. Here, heat and temperature transitions, and yes, that is the heat flow. And what is the instrument you are using? Thermobalance. And what is the instrument you are using here? DT apparatus. What is the instrument you are using here? Differential calorimeter. And what is the application? Thermal stability and composition. And what is the application? Phase diagram and thermal stability. And what is the DSC? Reaction kinetics and purity analysis. Like this you have to make. You can include some more points also. You can make it as a 15-mark question also, but I have made only for 10 marks. This is more than sufficient. You have to compare in an elegant manner and give what are all the key points. Here you can use null point balance. Null point balance will not be used in DT and DSC. That point also you can include. I did not. That also you can include. Clear, ma? Next topic is sensors. So spectrophotometer over, thermal analysis over, and the third topic is sensor. What are sensors? So you must be knowing nowadays we are using all touch phones, everything is nothing but the sensor materials. What is a sensor? It is a device used to detect changes in physical and chemical quantities. Clear? Well, how many types of sensors are there? Oxygen sensors, glucose sensors. The name indicates what is oxygen sensor? It senses oxygen. What is glucose sensor? It senses glucose. Where? In the sample. Correct? How many types of oxygen sensors are there? Electrochemical oxygen sensor, paramagnetic oxygen sensor, and zirconium oxygen sensor. So these are the 3 types of oxygen sensor. First, I will show you the electrochemical oxygen sensor. See, it measures the amount of oxygen present in the gas or liquid which is being analyzed. So this is the diagram. You have to take the beaker. Inside, you have to keep the electrolyte solution. What is electrolyte I am using? 0.1 nm KCl. You have the 2 electrodes, silver anode and a platinum cathode. Down you have the Teflon membrane. You can ask, why madam Teflon membrane we require? Why? Since this is a sample solution I am keeping. So from the sample solution, this membrane should allow only the oxygen gas. And inside you have electrolyte. No, this electrolyte should not come through the Teflon membrane to react with sample solution. Is it clear? The membrane is permeable only to the oxygen, not to the electrolyte. That's why we have kept it here. What is the potential difference we are applying between anode and the cathode? 1.5 volts. So what will happen? Simple logic. Silver undergoes oxidation, giving electrons. Now, what will happen? My cathode will become sufficiently polarized by taking all the electrons. Now, once what oxygen enters means oxygen is an electronegative. So it goes and it will stabilizes here. So what it will do means oxygen will take all the electrons. It will form O2 minus ions. Did you understand? So that O2 minus ions, which is nothing but the electrons it will get. So that difference in electrical circuit circuit voltage will be the amount of electric difference in circuit voltage, whatever is producing here is proportional to the amount of oxygen present in the solution. Is it clear? Now the anode, cathode, platinum, anode is silver, electrolyte. Semi-permeable membrane permits only oxygen, not the electrolyte. So there is a potential difference. The sensor is placed in contact with sample solution, and oxygen diffuses through the membrane and contacts with the cathode. Silver undergoes oxidation and cathode becomes negative. The current in the circuit, you understand or not? Now oxygen will give the electrons, it will produce some current. The current is proportional to the amount of oxygen present in the sample solution. So only one disadvantages for this is limitation, means you should not take any sample solution which is acidic gases. Acidic means that is a Teflon membrane, it will spoil the membrane porosity, etc. In such case, you have to be very careful. The second one is paramagnetic action sensors. Very simple. Paramagnetic action. What is paramagnetism? Whenever you have a unpaired electrons, it will attract towards the magnetic field. You must be knowing. Diamagnetic means it will not attract toward the magnetic field because all the electrons will be paired. Paramagnetic oxygen sensor. Why the name comes? Oxygen is paramagnetic in nature because it has some unpaired electrons. So when you keep these oxygen inside the magnetic field, it will undergo some sort of magnetic deflection. That when you measure, very simple. Is it clear? Now I will show you. It analyzes gases such as oxygen, nitric oxide, nitrogen dioxide, etc. because those are all paramagnetic. So what is the setup? I will show you the setup. It will be very easy. So this is the dumbbell. Now this is the dumbbell. Two dumbbell I have to keep. The entire dumbbell is placed inside the magnetic field. So you have to keep the magnets north pole, south pole, north pole, south pole, like that. You have to be. This is in the magnetic field. You understand? Homogeneous magnetic field. This is the two dumbbell I have to keep. This dumbbell is filled with nitrogen gas. Did you understand? This dumbbell is filled with nitrogen gas. Here I have a reflecting mirror. Through the mirror only, how the dumbbell rotates, I will see. Now what I will do, I will pass my sample solution which contains the oxygen. So what will happen? Once the oxygen enters here, you will have a magnetic deflection. Is it clear? So it will undergo some attraction. So the dumbbell will start moving from its original position. This degree of rotation through the mirror you have to measure. So this degree of rotation is directly proportional to the amount of oxygen present in the sample. That is what I have given here. The spheres are kept in homogeneous magnetic field. Samples containing the oxygen gas is passed through the dumbbells. The dumbbells start rotating because of strong magnetic attraction by oxygen. The resulting deviation of the spheres is detected with the help of reflecting mirrors and light source. The degree of rotation is directly proportional to the amount of oxygen present in the sample. So by applying the restoring force, you can set back the dumbbell into the original position. Hence, it is called paramagnetic oxygen sensor. First one is electrochemical oxygen sensor. Sometimes you can call it as Clark electrochemical oxygen sensor because he is the scientist who invented that sensor, and it is called as Clark electrochemical oxygen sensor. The second one is paramagnetic oxygen sensor. Why paramagnetic? Oxygen molecules will have paramagnetic behavior, hence this name is called paramagnetic oxygen sensor. And the third one is zirconium oxygen sensor. Zirconium oxygen sensor means we are using the zirconium material, hence it is called zirconium oxygen sensor. You would have studied this in fuel cells. YSEZ, yttria stabilized with zirconium. This is a ceramic made up of this material. This material YSEZ, yttria stabilized with zircon, is coated with thin layers of porous platinum, inner and outer. That is, platinum will act as both anode as well as the cathode. Clear? That is what I have given here. At high temperature, there will be some voids. Voids means gaps. Gaps will be there in the crystal lattice. There only oxygen will go and sit inside the crystal lattice of the yttrium stabilized with zirconia. Initially, the partial pressure of oxygen should be equal on both the sides. Now we have to send the sample containing oxygen inside. So those ions will migrate through the lattice and forms concentration gradient from higher partial pressure to the lower partial pressure. This can be calculated by the Nernst equation. I will show you. I think now this is a Nernst equation. So this is a diagram. I will show you the diagram. I have shown no. So this is the porous one. It is stabilized with zirconia. Inside and outside it was filled lined with the platinum carbon. Now both the sides you have the oxygen partial pressure should be equal. Now where you are sending the sample solution, where you will have the concentration gauge, there is a decrease or increase in the partial pressure. That decrease or increase in the partial pressure can be calculated by here, that P1, what is P1? P1 and P2 are the partial pressures of the either side of the zirconia tube. Now you will see that EMF R, gas constant, temperature, Faraday, and P1 and P2. So both the sides where you are getting the increase or the decrease, that side you will measure, that you will substitute here. You understand that EMF in volts you calculate, that what is the EMF in volts you are calculating, that is proportional to the oxygen concentration. Then that volt should be converted into the amount of ions present in the sample solution. So this is the setup for the zirconia oxide sensor. And what is the application? You can use this in automobiles, and you can use this in divers those are going for swimming. No, they will keep one mask there. You can use this oxygen sensor. It is used in anesthesia, operation theaters for respirating oxygen concentrators, etc. Last one is glucose sensors. Now oxygen sensor senses only the oxygen. The last one is glucose sensor. Glucose sensor means diabetic patient. You have to think about diabetic patients, sugar patients. They will go for only glucose sensor. You must be knowing a small instrument and small stick will be there. Very simple experiment I will teach you. It's a sensor which measures the concentration of glucose present in the sample. So you will keep one strip. Now what is a strip means? That strip contains the enzyme which is nothing but glucose 1 oxidase. It is a main catalyst. It was binded with this protein molecule, which is nothing but flavin adenine dinucleotide. You understand? First, this one, this will be present in the strip. Is it clear? Now, this will go reacts with the, this is the sample, reacts with the glucose present in the sample, and it will be reduced into glucolactone. Initially, glucose will be aldehyde. Now, it will become ketone. Now it will produce a cofactor. This is the cofactor, and you know, and your blood sample will contains oxygen also. That oxygen reacts with this cofactor. This oxygen reacts with this cofactor, and it will form the GOX FAD plus H2. So this is the, again you are regenerating back. Do you understand? My main is to the oxygen present in the glucose, I have to convert into some sort of electron related signal. Now it has been converted to hydrogen peroxide. This hydrogen peroxide producing 2H plus O2 plus 2 electrons. This electrons is proportional to the amount of glucose present in the blood sample. You understand? That's why in glucose, whenever you go for the test, once you use the strip again, you should not use it again, means because this is the enzyme protein what we are using. Once it is used, it cannot be reused.